We love the idea of the pure-hearted hero who saves the day, but the reality of human nature operates under much darker mechanics. When absolute innocence meets a self-interested reality, the outcome is rarely a happily ever after. We live in a society that rewards a very specific kind of programming. We are taught early on that emotional distance equals maturity, and that knowing how to bend the rules and other people is a basic requirement for survival. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky recognized this cynical operating system and decided to run a ruthless psychological test. He asked, what would happen if you dropped a glitch into the system, a human being completely incapable of cynicism? The result of that thought experiment was his masterpiece, The Idiot. Through it, he demonstrated a terrifying truth. Dropping a genuinely good man into a broken society does not fix the society. The society simply devours the man. Dostoevsky set his experiment in 19th century Russia, an environment caught in a feverish transition. The old religious traditions were fracturing under the weight of emerging modern nihilism. This photograph illustrates the control group of his test, an aristocracy weighed down by rigid social codes. This was an environment obsessed with calculated appearances, where every interaction was a transaction designed to maintain status. Into this environment, Dostoevsky introduces his independent variable, Prince Myshkin. The people around Myshkin call him an idiot, but his flaw isn't a lack of intelligence. He is highly perceptive. He simply lacks the instinct for social self-preservation. Where everyone else navigates through false courtesies and hidden agendas, Myshkin operates with absolute sincerity. He refuses to manipulate, even when it costs him dearly. By designing a character completely devoid of guile, Dostoevsky created a structural anomaly. Myshkin's pure innocence guarantees an inevitable, destructive collision with the rules of human interaction. Dostoevsky knew exactly how this collision would end. Years spent in a brutal Siberian prison camp taught him that humans are driven by fierce, subterranean passions, not rational logic. This dark understanding is what makes Myshkin so tragic. He suffers from what the philosopher Emile Cioran described as the torment of existing. Myshkin possesses a radical empathy. He doesn't just witness the pain of others, he absorbs it entirely as his own. This diagram shows how that boundless empathy functions as a systemic vulnerability. When you place one perfectly open node into a network of highly defensive, self-interested actors, the open node takes on every single inbound impact without deflecting anything back. Because Myshkin cannot use manipulation to protect himself, he provides no pushback. The emotional pressure from everyone around him simply builds inside him until he reaches a breaking point. To the society operating around him, this compassion is not revered as a holy virtue. It is recognized instantly as a dangerous, highly exploitable weakness. The chemical reaction of this experiment is deeply aggressive. Even though Myshkin never preaches or judges anyone, the people in his orbit treat him with intense mockery and repulsion. This happens through a mirror effect. When a person compromises their own values to get ahead, the presence of someone genuinely pure acts as a relentless mirror, exposing their moral ugliness. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche diagnosed this exact behavior. He observed that moral indignation is rarely a true response to injustice. It is almost always a shield we raise to hide our own guilt. Myshkin's very existence strips away that shield. By simply being good, he proves that living without corruption is possible, which destroys the excuses cynics rely on to justify their choices. Faced with that uncomfortable truth, the corrupted elements of society react instinctively. Crushing the pure variable is an act of psychological self-defense required to keep illusions intact. The experiment concludes exactly as parameters dictate. There is no glorious martyrdom for Myshkin, no triumphant climax. There is only a slow, quiet eradication. He isn't defeated by a grand villain. He is ground down into total psychological disintegration by the sheer accumulation of everyday indifference, subtle mockery, and constant exploitation. Dostoevsky refused to write a sugar-coated moral. He presented the brutal facts of his simulation, Offering absolute goodness without strategic astuteness is a fatal error in the fabric of human survival. The findings are absolute. Perfect innocence and complex human reality are mutually exclusive conditions. They cannot occupy the same space without one annihilating the other. We look back at 19th century Russia and judge them for their cruelty. But this exact same dynamic governs the modern corporate office, the architecture of our social media, and our daily interpersonal relationships. Every day, we encounter people who do not know how to measure words with cold calculation, and every day, we isolate and discard those who refuse to learn the art of dissimulation. If you met a Prince Myshkin today, would you actually protect him, or would you find his sincerity annoying? Would you eventually join the crowd, taking advantage of his good nature while laughing at his naivete? This is Dostoevsky's final, devastating trick. The title of the novel is a trap. Prince Myshkin was never the idiot. We are the idiots for carefully engineering a world where genuine goodness cannot possibly